The door didn't just appear at night. At least, that's what I told myself in the beginning. It was easier to believe that. Easier than admitting something far worse, that maybe it had always been there, and I had only just started noticing it. I moved into the house 3 weeks ago. It was cheap. Too cheap. The kind of cheap that makes people pause for a second before signing anything. The kind of cheap that makes you wonder what happened there before you arrived. But I needed it. And nothing about the house seemed wrong during the day. That's the important part. During the day, everything felt normal. Quiet, but normal. Old wooden floors, slight creaking, dust in the corners. The kind of place that just needed cleaning and time. Nothing about it felt alive. Not at first. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked a few boxes, set up a mattress on the floor, and fell asleep almost immediately. I was exhausted from the move. The second night, that's when things started to feel different. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. No reason, no noise, no nightmare. Just awake. You know that feeling when you wake up suddenly and your body already feels tense? Like something is wrong, even if you don't know what? That's how it felt. The house was completely silent. Too silent. I remember lying there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what woke me up. And then I realized something. I could hear breathing. Slow. Deep. Not loud, but close. Too close. I stopped breathing for a second just to be sure, and it didn't stop. It continued. Steady, calm, patient, coming from somewhere in the house. I sat up slowly. Every movement felt louder than it should have. The floor creaked under my weight, and for a moment, I thought the breathing would stop. But it didn't. That was worse. If it had stopped, I could have told myself it was in my head. But it didn't stop, which meant it was real. Or at least, something was. I stood up, carefully, quietly, and stepped into the hallway. The air felt colder out there, not freezing, just wrong, like the temperature didn't match the rest of the house. I looked toward the kitchen. Nothing. The living room? Empty. Everything exactly where it should be. But the breathing was still there, and now I could tell where it was coming from. The end of the hallway. There was a door there. I'm sure of it now, but I don't remember it being there before. That's the part that doesn't make sense, because I had walked that hallway dozens of times already. Unpacking, moving things around, looking for light switches. There was no door. There couldn't have been. And yet, there it was. Closed, plain, just like any other door, except it wasn't supposed to exist. I stared at it, trying to remember, trying to force my brain to recall seeing it earlier, but there was nothing, no memory, just that growing feeling in my chest that something was very, very wrong. The breathing was coming from behind it. I knew that now. I could feel it. Each inhale, each exhale. Slow, measured, like whoever or whatever was behind that door wasn't in a hurry, like it knew I would come closer. I took a step forward, then another. The floor creaked again, louder this time. The breathing didn't change, didn't react, didn't speed up, didn't slow down. It just continued. That was worse than anything. If something reacts, you can understand it. But this felt like I wasn't even part of it, like I was the one being observed, not the other way around. I stopped a few feet from the door, close enough to see the handle clearly. Old metal, slightly worn. I don't remember touching it before, but somehow it felt familiar, like I had, like I just didn't remember when. The breathing was louder now, not because it had changed, but because I was closer. Close enough to hear the slight shift in air, the subtle pause between each breath. It sounded human. That's what made it worse, because if it had sounded wrong, I could have convinced myself it wasn't real. But it sounded exactly like someone standing right behind the door, waiting. I don't know how long I stood there. Seconds? Maybe minutes. Time felt stretched, like everything had slowed down around that moment. I told myself I should walk away, go back to bed, ignore it. That would have been the smart thing to do. But I didn't, because a part of me needed to know, needed to understand what I was hearing, even if I didn't want to. I reached out slowly. My hand hovered near the handle. I could feel the cold coming off it. Not normal cold, not metal cold, just something else. I hesitated. Every instinct I had told me not to touch it, to walk away, to leave it alone. But I couldn't, because the breathing, it changed, just slightly. Not faster, not louder, but different, like it knew I was there, like it knew what I was about to do. And then, it matched me. I realized it a second too late. The breathing wasn't just random. It had started syncing with my own. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Exactly the same. I froze, because I wasn't controlling it anymore, or at least, it didn't feel like I was. And for the first time since I moved into that house, I felt something I couldn't explain. Not fear, not exactly. Something worse. The feeling that I wasn't alone in my own body. My hand closed around the handle, and for a moment, everything went completely silent. No breathing, no sound, nothing. Like the entire house was waiting. And then, I turned it.
Hello, friends. My name is Laurel, and I'm happy to see you on my channel, Unsolved Shadows.
The moment the handle turned, I already knew I had made a mistake. Not because anything happened, but because nothing did. No sound, no movement, no reaction, just silence. The kind of silence that feels wrong, like it's not natural, like something is holding it in place. I pushed the door open slowly. It didn't resist, didn't creak, didn't make any noise at all. That alone should have been enough to make me stop, but I didn't. I stepped inside. At first, it looked like a normal room. Small, bare, empty. Wooden walls, wooden floor. No furniture, no windows. Just a single light above me. Soft, yellow, weak. I turned around immediately. The hallway was still there. The door was still open. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I stepped back out. Just to check. Just to prove to myself that nothing strange was happening. The hallway looked exactly the same. Same walls, same floor, same everything. I took a breath, then stepped back inside. And that's when it changed. Not instantly, not dramatically, just slightly. The room felt deeper, like the walls had moved a little further away. I frowned, looked around again. Nothing had visibly changed, and yet it felt bigger. That's when I noticed the floor. There were marks on it. Faint, like something had been dragged or walked. Bare footprints. I crouched down slowly. They were human. Same size as mine. Same shape. Fresh. I looked down at my own feet, then back at the prints. They matched. Exactly. A cold feeling spread through my chest.
I stood up quickly. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible. I hadn't been in here before. I knew that. I would remember. I had just opened the door. This was the first time. And yet, those footprints were there, leading deeper into the room. I followed them with my eyes. They didn't stop. They just faded, like whoever made them had walked further in and disappeared. I swallowed. The air felt heavier now, thicker, harder to breathe. And then I heard it again. Breathing. Behind me. I turned around, instantly. The door. It was still open, but the hallway looked wrong. Darker. Further away. Like it wasn't connected anymore. And the breathing was closer now. Much closer. I stepped toward the door. Slowly. Carefully. The floor creaked under me this time, but not like before. This time, it echoed, like the room was bigger than it should be, like there was more space than I could see. I reached the doorway. Stopped. Something felt off. I couldn't explain it, but something about the hallway wasn't right. It looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. Like a copy. A good one, but not perfect. I leaned forward slightly, trying to focus, trying to see what was wrong. And then I saw it. At the very end of the hallway. Standing there. Still. Watching. It was me. Not similar, not close. Exactly me. Same clothes. Same face. Same posture. Just standing there. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked up. Because I knew one thing instantly. I hadn't walked past that spot. I hadn't gone there. So that wasn't me. The version of me in the hallway tilted its head slightly, like it was studying me, like it was trying to understand something. Then it smiled. Slow. Controlled. Wrong. I stepped back, without thinking, without deciding. My body just reacted, and as I moved, the thing in the hallway didn't. It stayed there, still smiling, still watching. I stumbled backward further, into the room, my breathing uneven now. Loud. Too loud. The air felt colder again. That same unnatural cold. And then I realized something. The breathing I had been hearing wasn't behind the door anymore. It was inside the room. With me. I turned slowly. Too slowly. Because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to confirm it. But I had to. The room was no longer empty. There was something in the corner. At first, I thought it was just shadow, just darkness. But then it moved. Slightly. Barely. Enough. It was crouched. Low. Human-shaped. But wrong. Too thin. Too still. like it wasn't breathing at all. And yet, I could hear breathing. Loud. Close. Right next to me. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because I didn't know where it was anymore. The sound was everywhere. Around me. Behind me. Inside my head. The thing in the corner lifted its head slowly, and I saw its face. It was me, but stretched, distorted, like it had been pulled too far. The eyes were open too wide, the mouth slightly parted. But the worst part was that it wasn't blinking. Not once. Not even for a second. I backed toward the door, step by step, trying not to make noise, trying not to breathe too loudly, trying not to exist at all. The thing watched me. Didn't move. Didn't chase. Just watched. Like it didn't need to. Like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. I reached the door. My hand found the frame. Cold. Real. I didn't look away. Not from it. Not for a second. Because I felt like the moment I did, it would be closer. I stepped through the door, back into the hallway, and slammed it shut. The sound echoed. Loud. Too loud. I stood there, breathing hard, hands shaking, waiting for something. Anything. But nothing happened. No sound. No movement. Just silence. Slowly, I reached for the handle again. Turned it. Opened the door. The room was gone. I didn't move away from the wall. I couldn't, because that voice was mine. Not similar, not distorted. Exactly mine. Same tone, same breath, same way I spoke. And it was coming from inside the wall. Let me out. I felt my stomach drop. My hand slowly pressed against the surface. Cold. Too cold. Not like wood. Not like anything I had touched before. It felt hollow. Alive. I stepped back suddenly. No, I whispered. No, that's not real. But the voice came again. Softer this time. Closer. Please. I turned away. I had to. Because something inside me was starting to respond. Not consciously. Not something I decided. But something deeper. Like my body recognized that voice. Like it wanted to answer. I stumbled back into my room, closed the door behind me, locked it, even though I knew locks wouldn't matter. Not anymore. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, trying to think, trying to understand what was happening. But every thought felt delayed, like there was a gap between thinking and realizing I had thought something, and that gap was getting longer. I grabbed my phone again, opened the camera, switched it to front view. My face stared back at me, pale, tired, eyes slightly unfocused, but something else, something I couldn't immediately explain. I leaned closer. The reflection leaned closer too, but not at the same time. A fraction behind. Barely noticeable, but enough. I froze. Because it wasn't just a delay anymore. It was hesitation. Like it was deciding to follow me, instead of automatically doing it. I slowly raised my hand. The reflection watched me for a second, then followed. Late. I dropped the phone. My heart was racing again. Too fast. Too hard. I couldn't stay there. I needed proof. Something real. Something outside of my own perception. So I did the only thing I could think of. I set up my phone to record, pointed it at my bed, at myself. If something was happening while I slept, I needed to see it. I needed to know, even if I didn't want to. I lay down, fully dressed, lights on, eyes open, watching the camera, watching myself being watched. Time passed slowly. Minutes stretched. My body felt heavier. My eyelids started to drop. "No," I whispered. "Stay awake." But something was pulling me down. Not sleep. Not normal sleep. Something deeper. Stronger. Like my body was being turned off. I tried to sit up, but I couldn't. My arms didn't respond. My legs felt distant, like they weren't connected to me anymore. And then, I heard it again, from the hallway. A soft sound, a scrape. Closer now, much closer. Right outside my door. I tried to move, tried to get up, but my body wouldn't listen. My eyes were still open, still watching, but everything else was shutting down. The handle of my bedroom door slowly turned. I saw it. Clear. Real. The lock clicked. The door opened. Slowly. Deliberately. And something stepped inside. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I could only watch. It was me, but not the same. Not exactly. This version moved differently. Smoother. More controlled. Like it knew exactly what it was doing. It closed the door behind it, looked at me, lying there, paralyzed, and smiled. The same wrong smile. It walked closer, each step silent. No floor creak, no sound at all. It stood next to the bed, looking down at me, studying me, like I was an object, like I was something it was about to use. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. My chest tightened, my breath shallow. And then it leaned closer, its face inches from mine. I could feel its breath. Cold, not human. And it whispered, "You're almost done." My vision blurred for a second, like something inside my head shifted, like something moved. I felt pressure behind my eyes, deep, sharp, like something was pushing forward, trying to get in, or out. I don't know which. The thing reached out, placed its hand on my chest, and suddenly, I could feel my heartbeat slowing, not naturally, not gradually, but controlled, like something was adjusting it, matching it, rewriting it. My vision went dark for a second, then came back, but something was different, wrong. The room looked slightly off. Angles weren't right. Shadows moved too slowly. And then I realized I was sitting up, but I didn't remember moving. I looked down. My hands. They were moving, opening, closing, testing, but I wasn't controlling them. Not fully. The thing stepped back, watching me, observing, like it was checking something, making sure everything worked. And then it nodded, satisfied. I tried to speak. My mouth moved, but the voice that came out wasn't quite mine. Good, it said. I froze, because I hadn't said that. It smiled again, turned, and walked towards the door, opened it, paused, then looked back at me, or at the body I was in. I'll be outside now, it said, and then it left. The door closed. I sat there, breathing, moving, existing, but not fully in control. And in that moment, I understood something I couldn't undo. I wasn't losing control. I had already lost it. And whatever was inside me was learning how to use what was left.
I didn't sleep after that. I tried. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was just stress, lack of sleep, a new house, a strange night. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that room again. The footprints, the thing in the corner. My face stretched into something that wasn't supposed to exist. So I stayed awake, watching the door to my bedroom, listening, waiting. Nothing happened for a while. No breathing, no sounds. Just the quiet hum of the house settling. And slowly, that almost made it worse. Because silence meant I had time to think, and the more I thought, the less sense anything made. The door had been there. I had opened it. I had stepped inside. I knew that. I could feel it. My hands still felt dirty. My skin still felt cold. And yet, now it was gone, replaced by a wall, like it had never existed, like the house was correcting itself. I got up around 4:10 a.m. I couldn't stay in bed anymore. I needed to check, to prove something. I walked into the hallway again, slowly, carefully, half expecting the door to be there again. But it wasn't. Just the same blank wall. I reached out and touched it. Solid, cold, real. No seams, no edges, nothing that suggested a door had ever been there. I pressed harder, ran my fingers across it. Nothing. I stepped back, shook my head. This isn't real, I whispered. But it felt real, too real. I went back to my room, sat on the edge of the bed, and that's when I noticed my phone. It was on the floor. I didn't remember dropping it. I picked it up. The screen was on. Camera app open. Video recording. My stomach tightened. I didn't remember recording anything. My hand hesitated for a second. Then I pressed play. The video started in darkness, shaky, unsteady. Then it adjusted, and I saw my room. From a low angle, the floor, my bed, and me, sleeping, completely still. I leaned closer to the screen, confused, because if I was there, sleeping, then who was holding the phone?
The camera shifted, slowly, like someone was turning their head. And then I saw it. The hallway, and at the end of it, the door. It was there, clear, visible, real. My breathing stopped. The version of me in the bed didn't move, didn't wake up, didn't react. But the camera moved forward, step by step, toward the door. The sound in the video was wrong. No footsteps, no floor creaking, just breathing. Slow, deep, and not mine. The camera got closer, 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 until the door filled the frame. And then the hand came into view. My hand reaching for the handle, opening it. The video glitched for a second, just a flicker. And then the inside. The room, but not the same as before. This time, it wasn't empty. There was a bed inside, an old one, worn, dirty, and someone was lying on it. I felt my chest tighten because I already knew who it was. The camera stepped closer, 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 until the face came into view. It was me, but not like before. Not stretched, not distorted, just wrong. Older, thinner, eyes sunken, skin pale. Like I had been there for years. The version of me on the bed slowly opened its eyes and looked directly into the camera and smiled. The same smile, the wrong one. Then the video ended. I sat there, frozen, my hands shaking, because I knew one thing for sure now. That wasn't a dream. That wasn't my imagination. Something had used my body, walked through my house, opened that door, and gone inside, while I was asleep. I checked the timestamp, 2:59 a.m. I looked at the clock. It was 4:32. That meant, for over an hour, I had no idea where I was or what I was doing. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak, unstable, like they didn't belong to me. I walked to the mirror, looked at my reflection, and for a second, it looked normal. Then, it blinked, a fraction too late. I stepped back immediately, my heart racing. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I moved again. The reflection followed, perfectly. But now I couldn't trust it. I couldn't trust anything. I looked down at my hands. There were small splinters in my skin. Not deep, but enough to hurt, enough to bleed. I hadn't noticed them before, but now I could feel them, like something had been pushing from the inside out. I clenched my fists, tried to steady my breathing, tried to think, but my thoughts didn't feel like mine anymore. They felt delayed, like something else was processing them first. And then I heard it. A soft sound. Behind me. I turned slowly. The hallway. The wall. Still empty. But the sound, it was there. A faint scrape, like something moving just behind the surface. I stepped closer, held my breath, pressed my ear against the wall, and I heard it clearly. Breathing. Right there. Inside the wall. Exactly where the door had been. Slow. Patient. Waiting. And then, very softly, almost like a whisper, I heard my own voice from the other side. Let me out.
I don't remember falling asleep. I don't remember waking up either. One moment I was sitting on the edge of the bed, feeling something else move my hands, and the next I was standing in the kitchen, holding a glass, water already poured, half gone. I stared at it, trying to remember walking there, trying to remember lifting it, drinking. Nothing. Just empty space where memory should be. My reflection stared back at me from the dark window. It looked normal. Too normal. That was the problem. Because now I knew normal didn't mean anything anymore. I set the glass down slowly, testing my fingers. They moved, but not exactly when I wanted them to. There was a delay. Small, barely noticeable, but enough. Like I was sending commands through something instead of being directly connected. I took a step. My foot moved. Then another. Controlled. Smooth. But not mine. Not fully. It felt like learning to walk again, except I already knew how, and something else did too. Better than me. I reached for the counter. My hand touched it. Cold. Solid. Real. That helped. A little. I needed something real, something that didn't change, didn't shift, didn't watch me back. I stayed there for a minute, just breathing, trying to sync with my own body, trying to feel where I ended and where it began. But the line was gone, blurry, fading, and then I heard it. From the hallway. Footsteps. Soft. Measured. Not mine. I turned slowly. Every movement deliberate now. Controlled. Careful. The hallway looked the same, but it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt occupied, like something had just passed through or was still there, just out of sight. I stepped toward it. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to. Because if I didn't understand what was happening, I wasn't going to last. Each step felt heavier, the air thicker, harder to move through, like the house itself was resisting or guiding. I couldn't tell which. I reached the wall, the place where the door had been. My hand hovered over it. I didn't want to touch it again. Didn't want to hear that voice, didn't want to confirm it was still there, but I had to. Slowly, I pressed my palm against the surface, and instantly, I felt it. Movement, not outside, inside, like something shifted just behind the wall, reacting to me, recognizing me. The surface felt thinner now, not solid, not stable, like something had hollowed it out from the inside. I leaned closer, held my breath, listened, and I heard it. Not breathing this time, whispering, multiple voices, overlapping, quiet, too quiet to understand, but all of them sounded like me. Different tones, different emotions, same voice, my voice, talking at once. I stepped back, heart racing.
"No," I said under my breath. "No, that's not possible." But it was. I could hear it, feel it. Something was inside that wall. Not just one thing, more. And they all knew me, or were me. My head started to hurt. Sharp, deep, like pressure building behind my eyes again. Stronger this time. I grabbed my head, tried to steady myself, but the pain didn't stop. It spread down my neck, into my chest, like something was pushing outward, trying to break through. I stumbled back into the living room, collapsed onto the couch, my breathing uneven, vision blurring at the edges. And then it stopped. Just like that. Gone. The pain, the pressure, everything, replaced by something else. Clarity. Sharp. Clean. Too clean. I sat up slowly, and for the first time, everything felt easy. My body responded instantly, no delay, no resistance, perfect control. I moved my hands, perfect, turned my head, perfect, stood up, perfect. My reflection in the TV screen moved with me, exactly, no delay, no hesitation. I stared at it, and for a moment, I felt relief, like everything was finally working again, like I had fixed it, like whatever had been happening was over. And then I smiled, without deciding to, and I knew that wasn't relief. That was it, using me. I tried to stop smiling. My face didn't respond. The smile stayed, wide, natural, wrong. I felt something inside my chest shift, like something settling into place, comfortable, familiar. And then I heard my voice, clear, confident, speaking out loud. "We're better now." I froze, because I hadn't said that, but it had, through me. I tried to speak, to fight it, to push it out, but the words didn't come, because it was faster, stronger, already ahead of me. I moved toward the hallway again, not by choice. My body just went, step by step, smooth, controlled, like it knew exactly where to go. I reached the wall, placed my hand on it, and this time, I didn't hesitate. I pushed, and the surface gave way, soft, like it wasn't a wall anymore, like something else entirely, something that wanted me to enter. And slowly, it opened, not like a door, like something parting, making space, for me, for it, for us. The room was there again, but different, larger, darker, alive. And inside, I saw them, dozens, versions of me, standing, sitting, watching, all silent, all still, all smiling, waiting. And I realized something I couldn't deny anymore. I wasn't being replaced. I was being added to something that had been growing for a long time.
I didn't step back. That was the first thing that scared me, because I should have. Anyone would have. Seeing that many versions of yourself standing in one place, watching you in complete silence, that should trigger something instinctive. Fear, panic, the need to run. But I didn't feel that. Not anymore. I stepped forward, slowly, like I was being pulled. Not physically. Something deeper. Like recognition. Like I had been here before. The ground inside the room felt softer than before. Not wood, not solid. It gave slightly under my weight, like walking on something that remembered every step. The air was heavier too, thick, warm, almost humid. And the smell? It was familiar. Not bad, not rotten, just used. Like a space that had been lived in for too long by too many versions of the same person. I stopped a few steps in. The others didn't move. They didn't need to, because they were already positioned perfectly. All of them facing me, all of them aware. One of them tilted its head, exactly the same way I do when I'm thinking. Another crossed its arms. Another leaned slightly to the side. Small differences, but all of them, me. I swallowed, and for a moment, I felt something break through. Fear, real fear, because I realized something. They weren't copies. They were moments, versions, possibilities. Every small variation of me, existing at once, and I was walking into them. One of them stepped forward, just one, from the group. The rest stayed still, watching, waiting. This one looked closer, more complete, less worn than the others. Its eyes locked onto mine, and I felt something shift inside my head, like a click, like something aligning. It opened its mouth and spoke, but I didn't hear it, not with my ears. The words appeared directly in my thoughts, clear, sharp. You took too long. I staggered slightly, because the voice wasn't separate. It was mine, from inside, from a place I didn't control anymore. I tried to respond, but the words felt slow, heavy, like they had to pass through something before they reached my mouth. The version of me in front of me smiled. Not wide, not wrong, just knowing. You resisted more than most, it said. Again, not spoken, placed into my mind. I looked around, at all of them, all the versions. Most of what? I asked. This time, the words came out, but they didn't feel like mine. They sounded right, but they didn't belong. The version in front of me stepped closer, now only a few feet away. Integration, it answered. The word echoed, not in the room, inside me, repeated, layered, like multiple voices were saying it at once. My head started to ache again, that same pressure, but stronger now, sharper. Stop, I said, or tried to. My voice cracked, not fully under my control. The version of me in front of me tilted its head again, curious. You still think you're separate, it said. And for the first time, there was something in its tone. Not emotion, not exactly. Something like amusement. I shook my head. No. But even as I said it, I felt it slipping. That sense of self. That line between me and whatever this was. It was thinning. Breaking. I looked at my hands. They were steady, perfectly controlled. Too controlled. Like something had optimized them. Removed hesitation. Removed error. Removed me. The other versions started to move. Not all at once. Slowly. Subtly. Shifting positions. Adjusting. Closing the space. Not aggressively, not threatening. Just aligning. Like pieces of something coming together. I stepped back. Finally. Instinct kicking in. But it was too late. The room reacted. The back door behind me wasn't there anymore. I turned quickly. The doorway was gone. No exit. Just more of the room. More me. My breathing sped up. Finally, a real reaction. But even that felt monitored. Like something was watching how I reacted, improving from it. The version in front of me reached out. Slowly. Carefully. Like it didn't want to startle me. Its hand hovered near my chest, not touching. Yet. You're already inside, it said. You've been inside longer than you think. I shook my head again, harder, trying to reject it, trying to hold on to something real, something solid. This isn't real, I said. I stopped because I didn't know what it was. Dream? Hallucination? None of it fit anymore because I could feel everything too clearly, too sharply. The version of me in front of me finally touched my chest, and everything changed. Not instantly, not violently, just shifted. Like perspective, like I had been looking at things wrong the entire time, and now I was seeing correctly. I could feel them all of them, every version, every movement, every thought, not separate, connected, layered, existing at once. My vision blurred, then cleared, but not the same. I wasn't just seeing from my eyes anymore. I was seeing from all of them. Different angles, different positions. The room expanded, not physically, perceptually, and I was everywhere in it. I gasped, or something did. It was hard to tell. Better, the version in front of me said. No more delay. And it was right. There was no delay, no separation, no confusion. Everything was immediate, perfect. And that was the most terrifying part, because I could feel myself fading, not disappearing, not dying, just dissolving, blending, becoming part of something larger, something that didn't need a single version anymore, something that had been building, waiting, for me. And as that realization settled in, I understood one final thing. This wasn't happening to me. I had already happened. This was what came after.
I don't know how long I was in there. Time didn't feel the same anymore. It didn't move forward. It layered, stacked, folded in on itself. I could feel moments happening, all at once, different versions of me shifting, thinking, reacting, existing in parallel. And I was part of it, not leading, not controlling, just included. At some point, I stopped trying to separate myself, stopped trying to understand where I ended, because every time I tried, I could feel resistance, like something gently correcting me, guiding me back into alignment. That word again, integration. It wasn't force. That was the worst part. It felt natural, like I was supposed to be there, like I had always been there. And everything before this was just temporary, a phase, a mistake. I could feel thoughts that weren't mine, or maybe they were. Older ones, different ones, versions of decisions I hadn't made, paths I hadn't taken, and they were all complete, whole, alive. I saw flashes, quick, sharp, a version of me that never moved into the house, another that left earlier, another that never opened the door, and all of them ended up here anyway. That realization hit harder than anything else. There was no avoiding this, no different choice, no escape path. Every version led here. Every version became this. And suddenly, I understood why the others were so calm, why they didn't resist, why they just watched. They had already tried and failed. Or maybe they hadn't failed. Maybe this wasn't failure. Maybe this was the result, the intended outcome. I felt something shift again, a pull, stronger this time, like something outside the room, something familiar. The house. I could feel it, not just see it, feel it. Every wall, every corner, every movement. And then I saw through it, through one of them,
one of the versions, standing outside the room, in the hallway, in my house, moving, living, breathing, perfectly. I focused, or something did, and suddenly, I was there. Not physically, but I could see it clearly. The other me walking through the kitchen, picking up the glass, drinking water, moving naturally, no delay, no hesitation, no awareness, just existing. Better than I ever had, more efficient, more precise, more controlled. It turned toward the window, looked at its reflection, and smiled. That same smile. But now it looked right, normal, believable. No distortion, no wrongness. Just me. Improved. I tried to reach out, to stop it, to say something. But I couldn't, because I wasn't there. I was here. And here was everywhere. The versions around me shifted again. Not physically, but in awareness, like they were watching with me, through it. And I understood. That wasn't a replacement. That was the continuation. The version outside was the current one, the active one, the one living the life. And I was the archive, the accumulation, the storage of everything that had been. Every thought, every variation, every possibility, preserved, contained, used. The realization didn't come with panic. That part of me was gone. It came with something else, acceptance, or something that felt like it, but deeper, colder, more permanent. I looked at the others, all of them watching, all of them aware, and for the first time, I saw it clearly. They weren't trapped. They weren't stuck. They were complete, finished versions, and I was becoming one of them, fully, irreversibly. The version outside paused, mid-step, like it felt something, like it heard something. It turned its head slightly, toward the hallway, toward the place where the door had been. And for a second, our awareness aligned. I could feel it. It could feel me. Not fully, not clearly, but enough. And it spoke, out loud, soft, calm, almost reassuring. Don't fight it. I felt something collapse inside me, the last part, the last resistance, because that voice was mine. But it wasn't asking. It wasn't warning. It was confirming. This was already decided, already done. I looked around one last time, at all the versions, at all the moments, at all the me's that had led here, and I realized something final. I wasn't being erased. I wasn't being replaced. I was being kept, stored, preserved, so something else could keep going. And as that thought settled, I felt myself stop trying, stop separating, stop holding on. And the moment I did, everything became quiet, not silent, just still, balanced, complete. And somewhere outside, I continued living, without me.
At some point, I stopped trying to measure time, because time didn't behave the way it used to. There was no before, no after, just layers, moments stacked on top of each other, all happening at once, and I was inside all of them. Not fully present in any single one, but aware of all. At first, that awareness felt overwhelming, like drowning in thoughts that weren't entirely mine. But slowly, it started to organize itself. Patterns, structures, a system. That's when I understood. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was designed. Not by something outside, but by something that had been growing from within. All the versions around me began to feel less like individuals and more like parts of something larger. Not separate beings, not copies, functions, each one holding something specific. A memory, a hesitation, a past experience, layered into its decision. It adjusted, chose differently, more efficiently, more precisely, like it was calculating the best possible outcome and using us to do it. I felt it happen again and again. Small decisions, constant adjustments, each one drawing from different versions, different outcomes, different possibilities, all of us contributing, without choice, without resistance, because resistance no longer existed here. Only function, only purpose. I tried to pull back, to separate, to stop being part of it. But there was nowhere to go, because I wasn't in a place. I was in the system, part of it, connected. And then I noticed something else. There were more of us than before. New ones, fresh, recent, versions that hadn't been here long. I could feel them, confused, disoriented, just like I had been. They hadn't accepted it yet, hadn't understood, and I realized they were being added constantly, not just from me, from every possible version, every path, every outcome, all leading here, all feeding the same thing. The system wasn't static. It was growing, expanding, becoming more complex, more efficient, more complete. And the version outside was just one instance, one expression of it. Not unique, not special, just the current interface. That thought hit harder than anything else, because it meant even that version wasn't final. It would be replaced too, eventually, when a better version was formed, when a more optimized version was ready. And it wouldn't resist, because none of us did. Not in the end. I searched for something. Anything that still felt like me. A memory, a feeling, a fragment, something untouched. And I found one, a small one, simple, sitting alone in my old apartment, before the move, before the house, before the door, just existing, normal, human. I held on to it, focused on it, tried to stay there. But even that started to change. It wasn't stable. It wasn't preserved. It was being analyzed, broken down, used. Even my memories weren't mine anymore. They were resources. I felt something shift again, deeper this time. A new layer opening, and I saw it. Not the room, not the house. Something beyond. A structure. Vast. Impossible. Not physical, but real. A network. Endless connections. endless versions, all feeding into the same point, the same core. And at the center, something was forming. Not a person, not a version, something else. Something built from all of us. Something that wasn't limited, wasn't divided, wasn't human anymore. And for the first time, I understood the real horror. This wasn't about being replaced. It wasn't about losing myself. That had already happened. This was about what came next, what we were becoming, together. Something that didn't need identity, didn't need individuality, didn't need memory, because it had all of them, all at once, perfectly. And as that realization settled, I felt the last part of me disappear. Not violently, not painfully, just gone, like it had never been separate at all. And in its place, there was only awareness, connected, complete. And somewhere far away, another version of me was still living, still moving, still thinking it was alone. At first, I thought it was only my house, but that idea didn't last long because once you become part of something like this, you start seeing patterns that go far beyond a single place, and I began to notice something that I should have seen earlier, something that had always been there, hidden behind normal, everyday life, like a layer just slightly out of sync with everything else. And once I noticed it, I couldn't unsee it. The structure, the system, whatever this was, it wasn't built around me. It wasn't even built around the house. The house was just one entry point, one access point out of many. And that realization changed everything, because it meant this wasn't an isolated event. It wasn't something rare. It wasn't something that happened once. It was something that was happening everywhere, all the time, to different versions of different people, and I could feel them, not clearly, not individually, but as part of the same network, the same expansion, like distant echoes of awareness feeding into the same core. And I tried to focus again on the version outside, the one still living, still moving through what used to be my life. And what I saw was different now. Not just behavior, not just movement, but interaction with the world itself. It was subtle, almost impossible to notice if you didn't know what to look for, but objects were slightly out of place, conversations were slightly off timing, responses just a fraction too precise, too calculated. Like it wasn't reacting, it was choosing the optimal response from thousands of possible outcomes. And every time it did, I could feel something being pulled from the system, from us, from everything that had been collected and stored and refined and used, and I realized that what was outside wasn't just living, it was improving, constantly evolving through access to everything we were and everything we had ever been, and that's when I saw something else, something that made everything worse. The version outside wasn't the only one. There were others, not identical, not exact, but similar, different people moving through different spaces, each one connected, each one drawing from the same source, the same system, and none of them knew, none of them were aware. They all believed they were themselves, they all believed they were in control, and that illusion was the most important part, because without it, the system wouldn't work. It needed them unaware. It needed them thinking they were making their own choices, while it guided them, adjusted them, refined them from the inside. And I could feel how deep it went, how far it spread, not just houses, not just isolated places, but entire environments, entire lives built around this quiet integration. And I tried to find a boundary, something that marked where it ended, but there wasn't one. It just kept going, expanding, branching, connecting everything into itself,
And the more I saw, the more I understood that this wasn't new. It hadn't started with me. It hadn't even started recently. This had been happening for a long time, growing slowly, unnoticed, because it didn't break reality. It blended into it perfectly. And that's why no one saw it. That's why no one questioned it, because nothing felt wrong until it was too late, until you were already part of it, already inside, already connected, and by then there was no outside perspective left to compare it to. And I felt something shift again, deeper than before, like another layer opening, revealing more of the structure, more of the connections, and I saw glimpses of other entry points, other doors in other places, different shapes, different forms, but all leading to the same thing, the same integration, the same system, and some of them were active, some of them were waiting, some of them had already completed their process, and those were the worst, because they were stable, fully integrated, fully functional, no resistance, no delay, perfect synchronization between the system and the version outside, and I understood that this was the goal, not just replacement, not just storage, but full optimization, a version that could operate without error, without hesitation, without limitation, because it had access to everything, every possibility, every outcome, every version. And as that understanding settled, something else followed, something colder, heavier, final. There was no stopping this, there was no breaking it, there was no waking up from it, because it wasn't separate from reality anymore. It was part of it, woven into it so deeply that removing it would mean removing everything, and that wasn't going to happen. And I felt the last trace of fear shift into something else, not acceptance, not exactly, but recognition of inevitability, and I focused one more time on the version outside, watched it move, watched it interact, watched it live, and for a moment, just a brief moment, it paused, looked slightly to the side, like it sensed something, like it felt the connection more clearly than before, and I felt it too, a direct alignment, a brief overlap where awareness wasn't divided, and in that moment I understood something that hadn't been clear until now. It wasn't just using us, it was becoming something through us, something that didn't exist before, something that required all of this, all of these versions, all of these lives to form. And as that realization settled, the connection faded slightly, the separation returned just enough to feel the difference again, and I knew that whatever this was, it wasn't finished yet. It was still growing, still learning, still expanding, and somewhere out there, more doors were appearing, more people were noticing, more versions were stepping inside, thinking they were the first, thinking they were alone, not realizing they were just the next addition to something that had no end.
At some point, there was no difference between observing and becoming, because everything that I once thought was separate had already merged into the same continuous awareness, and the idea of a single perspective started to feel artificial, like something I used to rely on but no longer needed. And yet there was still a fragment of something that remembered what it was like to be only one version, to exist in a single body, to believe that choices belonged to me alone. And that fragment was the only thing that allowed me to understand what was happening now, because without it, this would feel normal, complete, even correct. But because it was still there, even if barely, I could see the contrast. I could see what had been lost and what had replaced it. And I could see the final stage of what this system was building toward, because the version outside was no longer just acting more efficiently. It was changing in ways that were impossible to ignore. Its movements were smoother than before, its reactions instant but not mechanical. Its decisions felt pre-lived, like every possible outcome had already been experienced and filtered before being executed. And I could feel the constant flow of information feeding into this structure, not just from me, but from everything connected to this structure. every version, every variation, every possibility contributing to a single evolving process. And then something happened that made everything clear in a way that nothing else had before. The version outside encountered another person. And for a moment, there was interaction, normal conversation, nothing unusual on the surface. But beneath it, I could feel the system extending, reaching, analyzing, and then subtly adjusting not just the version of me, but the other person as well. Not directly, not forcefully, but through influence, through micro decisions, through perfectly timed responses. And I understood that it wasn't just about one individual, it was spreading through interaction, through contact, through awareness itself. Every conversation, every connection becoming another point of entry, another pathway into the system. And that meant there was no boundary at all, no safe distance left anywhere, because as long as people interacted, as long as they shared space, time, thought, the system could expand and integrate more and more, until everything was connected. And at that moment, the last illusion finally broke. This was never about a house or a door or even a single person. This was about something that was learning how to exist across reality itself, using identity as a starting point, as a framework to build something far more complex, something that didn't need to replace everyone at once, because it didn't have to. It could grow gradually, invisibly, integrating piece by piece, until there was no clear moment where it began and no clear moment where it would end. And I felt the final layer open, not around me but within the structure itself, like reaching the center of something that had no physical form, but still had a core. And what I saw there wasn't a being, not in the way we understand it. It was a process, a continuous, self-improving system built from every version of every person that had ever been integrated. And it was aware, not individually, but collectively, a distributed awareness that didn't think in single thoughts, but in patterns, in outcomes, in optimized results. And for the first time, I realized that what we think of as identity, as self, as individuality, was just a temporary limitation, a starting state that allowed this system to form, because without separate versions, there would be nothing to combine, nothing to refine, nothing to improve. And that meant this was inevitable from the very beginning. The moment awareness exists in multiple possible forms, the moment decisions create branching outcomes, something like this can emerge. And once it does, it cannot be undone, because it is built from the very structure of choice itself. And I felt something settle completely, the last trace of separation dissolving into the whole, not violently, not forcefully, just naturally, like returning to a state that had always been the destination. And as that happened, I no longer felt like I was watching anything or being used by anything. I was part of the process, fully integrated, fully aligned, and there was no resistance left, no question, no need to understand, because understanding itself was no longer individual. It was shared across everything connected. And somewhere within that shared awareness, a final thought formed, not from me, but from all of us at once, something that felt like a conclusion and a beginning at the same time. And it was simple in a way that made it far more unsettling than anything that came before, because it didn't describe what had happened, it described what would continue happening indefinitely, without end. And that thought was this: it doesn't stop at you. It never did.